right, it is 6 o'clock, so we will go ahead and call this meeting of the Greensburg City Council to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Councilwoman Reeves is absent tonight, but the rest of the council is present, so we will proceed with our agenda tonight. First up is the approval of tonight's agenda. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the agenda as presented?
I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Citizen comments. I think everyone here is on the agenda tonight. So hearing no citizen comments this evening, we'll move along to our consent agenda, which includes the minutes of our June 17th meeting and appropriations ordinance 1271.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda, ordinance 1271.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve tonight's consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to our items of business tonight. We've got several. First up, Brooke and James are here from KPP to get us an update on the PACE solar project.
Thanks for having us tonight. We prepared a memo for you, and this memo is pretty close to what we provided you last time around. I left some of the same information in there just so if you wanted to review it. And actually, what's blue on the memo is kind of what's new and what's changed since the last time we were here. So we wanted to come and just give an update and be available for questions on our PACE solar project that's going to be here. And as we promised the last time, we were going to try to do better at getting out in front of you guys and at least showing up and giving you updates on this. So since we last met, everything's still moving forward at full steam ahead, at least on our end. Federal government's a little slower, but we have, in the original, when we were here last time, we had nine sites that we were going to do, and that has been reduced down to 7. The remaining ones are listed here. Kingman and Mulvane's sites did not work out. So we pulled those from the project, and we were able to allocate just a little bit more megawatts to the Place Center project and to the Winfield project. It didn't completely get us back to the 20 megawatts we were hoping for, but that's what we were able to adjust the layouts of those designs to increase a little bit to accommodate for those projects that fell through. We have submitted the applications to USDA with all the revisions, and if you look at the progress up to date, you can see kind of what we're doing now and what's happened. The environmental, tribal, and archaeological requirements are all now complete and submitted. The easement from the property that we're going to use here has been received and recorded. The zoning determination letter was received and provided to USDA. As I mentioned, the USDA application has been revised with the change of the project and the costs and interest rates and all the components, and that's going through approval right now. Our team is meeting with USDA every Monday now with their underwriters, cleaning up stuff, and we're kind of hoping to be done and completed, knock on wood, cross our fingers, by the end of August now. So there's a lot of committees that our projects and paperwork have to go through, and those are happening. Along with that, the financial forecasts with the projects have all been updated just to make sure it's still a viable project and still very good for us, and nothing's changed in that aspect, so that's great. The KPP Energy Financial Planning team is in full steam ahead. We're working with bond counsel and our accountants and making sure that financing will be lined up in the time that needs to. On the next page is a couple of slides that I shared with you. The first one's all the projects and some information about those. Just wanted to share those. We kind of have a priority list based on truly on the size. We want to try to get the biggest projects in the ground first. So you can see priority right now, Greensburg for 6, but that could change with it being just a 1 megawatt project. It just kind of depends. The 1 megawatts are just put down there together. Down below is a map of your project. Stacy participated on a call with our developers. All of the projects in this program, everybody met with our developers online, and we discussed everybody's project, the layout. Was there any underlying issues we didn't consider? One of the projects that was actually in Place Center, there were some things that was never mentioned because the survey didn't provide the information we needed because it was city property, and it just didn't show up, like a water line is there and things like that. So we brainstormed with all of the players per se to make sure we were thinking about all of those things that could possibly be on the properties. And any design and engineering changed at that point, and I don't think Greensburg's changed at all. I don't think there was anything that caused any consideration. Moving forward on the timeline, you can see really the only thing I highlighted in blue was Q3 now. We were hoping to get our USDA PACE notice to proceed letter in Q2. We will probably, hopefully get that Q2, maybe, hopefully Q3 out. So with that, you can push all these timelines out just a bit based on these weeks, but we still hope to have something online in Q4 and hopefully clean up in Q1 of 2025. So with that being said, like I said, we wanted to just kind of give you an update. Is there any questions you all may have? Anything you need from us? Did I leave anything out?
You did great.
So we want to be available and anytime you guys have questions, if you're hearing anything, that's what we're here for. So.
Council, any questions for Brooke or James? Sounds like we're on the pretty much the same path, just
Awesome.
waiting on all the I's to be dotted and T's to be
A
crossed.
lot of committees and dots and
It's been
T's.
painfully slow, we're not used to, I'm away on that first, but, it'll be well worth it.
Yeah.
Has there been some site work done out there?
Well, they did the archaeological
Right.
work and surveying, but other than that,
Right, yeah.
I just wondered, it looked like there had been part of the property there east of the gun club.
I know they did some tilling out there to do lead recovery or something like that.
oh,
So is that
that
part
may,
of the archaeological?
no, that was part, the gun club had somebody come in and do lead mining to remove some of the lead
So that's on them.
in the
Okay.
ground there, yeah,
Good to know, we'll swing by and look at it, just see what happens.
yeah.
All right, well, thank
If
you.
you have
Yeah.
any
Thanks for
questions.
the update.
Yep, we'll be back to give you another update as progress happens, so, okay,
Thanks, guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our second item of business tonight. Jeannie Finch from the Historical Museum, or the Kiowa County Historical Museum is here to put in a request for the 2025 budget.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I'm here asking for appropriations every year. I'm looking for $5,000. And this is not only I feel that the county shouldn't get funds, I think it needs to come from the cities too. So I'm starting with the city of Greensburg since it's right next door. So I am asking to be put into the budget every year for at least $5,000. And that will pay for, to sustain everything, from payroll to products and, everything is going up in the world. So I decided that, I'm gonna come and ask for ask each city for funds.
As I'm sure you've seen, we'll be reviewing our 2025 draft budget, so I'd encourage you to stick around for that discussion and just see how it goes. But council, any questions for Jeannie or?
Gee, did you say you were going to start with the city of Greensburg?
Yes, I do have appointments with the other two cities, you
Okay.
bet. So
Okay.
I'll be asking for the same, because it's not just Greensburg, it's countywide.
Exactly.
Everybody comes, like, not only like for the pool, after the pool, they come to the soda fountain. So I'm looking for money for all the cities, because they come from each town. They come over here and they enjoy it, not only the they do go into the museum. So, that definitely. Anybody have any
What-
questions? No?
What does the county kick into this every year? Can you tell us?
45,
What's that?
45,
45,000?
yes. I can ask for that if you want me to.
No, I was just curious.
You can ask. Yeah, it's 45. And that might change come, in the middle of the month. They might be cutting, so, don't know.
Currently still penciled in for 45. It could change in 2 weeks, you're right.
I'd be interested to know what Haviland and Mullenville, what their thoughts are on it too, also,
Okay.
before I would make a commitment to what
Mhm.
we could do.
Historically, have we supported them in any?
The last time
Financially?
would have been, I'd have to look back exactly when, probably 6 or 8 years ago, no, longer than that, 8 or 10, when the city had a nonprofit grant program, and that, there was an amount allocated as a bucket of money people could apply to nonprofits, and that was the last time that contributions like that I know
Yeah.
of have been made.
And in the last year or two, we've established that South Central Community Foundation Grant Board. Would that maybe be another potential avenue for funding
Yeah.
groups like the Historical Society?
Yes, the Greensburg Future Fund, which was leftover tornado donations that South Central Community Foundation had. And as the mayor said, there's a committee that reviews those grant applications for nonprofits that can apply. That might be a way to contribute to that, and then they can administer and disperse those funds.
This is basic, what I'm looking for is a yearly, to be on the books, to give to the Historical Society and for the Soda Fountain. Not for me to come every year and ask for the money. I want it to be put on. So each year, say in July, you guys give me, $5,000 in a check, not me personally, but to the museum, so.
Well, Jeannie, like I said, we'll be discussing our budget in more detail a little later tonight. You're more than welcome to stick around for that.
I'll
kinda
go
need to
home and watch online, but thank you.
Yeah, we need to kind of know how our overall budget's looking before we can commit dollars to anything, so.
Lynn, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Have a good evening.
All right. Our next item of business is actually for the Greensburg Land Bank. So we will suspend the meeting of the Greensburg City Council temporarily and convene as the Land Bank Board and consider a request to purchase 128 North Main.
You'll find that application included in the packet from Chance Little to purchase 128 North Main from the Land Bank. I've also included a map of the current Land Bank properties for sale. There are just two, and they're both commercial properties. This property requested is a 50 by 140 foot property. Mr. Little intends to build a commercial building there on that property, and he included a rough idea of what he'd like to build. He indicated that there would potentially be some changes, but that was just sort of kind of a rough idea of what he's looking at doing. There are city downtown design standards and zoning regulations that we'll need to look at as far as that construction when the time comes, but those will be taken into consideration. He did say that he plans to build sometime late October, November to get started, so he does have a timeline in the near future to get going on that. Typically, lots for buildable purposes such as this have sold for $300 out of the land bank. And then upon approval, it has the 30-day advertising and waiting period before the final documents are executed to complete the sale.
Land Bank Board, any questions on this request to purchase 128 North Main?
I'm going to abstain from any discussion or voting on this issue, because I feel like it's a conflict of interest for myself, so.
Would you be interested in any property out of the,
I think he owns a neighboring lot.
He does. He owns a neighboring lot on North Main, so he would have continuous property there.
I see.
My own 2 cents, this is what the land bank's for. It's helping a local business expand its operations. I don't see any problem with it.
I agree.
been moved and seconded to approve the request to purchase 128 North Main by Chance Little. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, and that does it for land bank business, so we will adjourn the meeting of the Greensburg Land Bank tonight and reconvene the city council meeting and move on to our next agenda item, which may take a little bit to set up, as we're going to have a virtual presentation by Terry Thompson of Green G Networks about a project they're working on that might impact our area.
Hopefully technology will cooperate. Not there yet.
Oh, looks like they just dropped one. This has changed to 2.
Hi there.
You're muted,
You're
Terry.
muted. There we go.
How's that?
That's good.
Can you hear me now, Stacy?
Yes. You're on here with the city council, so I can pull up your presentation and share that. If that's what
Can
you'd
you
like.
have slide 1, please?
Okay?
Is the volume okay now?
Yes.
Okay. So we're all ready to go?
Yeah, can you see that as well?
Or can you slide it up just a little bit?
Sorry, I'm trying to control this.
That's good.
Okay.
Well, good evening. My name is Terry Tomlinson. I want to thank you for an opportunity to meet with you this evening. I am the research director for a reaching out and encompassing acreage within the areas bordered by Lincoln and then Liberal. What it is we are trying to demonstrate is that innovators that we have brought into Green G LLC have products and technologies that can essentially buy us more time with the Ogallala Aquifer by reducing irrigation consumption. We are looking to demonstrate that we can reduce pivot irrigation needs by 70% or more to support crop production. And we're hoping to be able to enlist the assistance of 2,500 acres of irrigated cropland within this region for the testing to be done. And to do that, the ag producer is going to have to be compensated, and we have that within the business plan and budget. So it's essentially a multi-year soil regeneration, water conservation project focused primarily on irrigation. And in that, we would also be looking at, as irrigation activity is reduced, what can we do in terms, or what must we do in terms of new crops, new product development to maintain cash flow for our ag producers in the region. My request, or our request of Greensburg, is the capital sources that we are now engaged in talking to, because the New Mexico project is the first project that we have now on the table of a investment group that is investing several hundreds of millions of dollars of federal money into this exact problem. And we hope to be hearing by the 1st of August that we've made the cut for further due diligence activity on that. But we are also talking with philanthropic impact and investment capital resources that are looking to bring several $billion a year to the table to support this type of development activity. And what we're asking of Greensburg is we're asking for no financial commitment, but these philanthropic capital resources want stakeholders at the project design table. And our ask of you is to join us at the design table as we get into this, and to help us bring Kansas State Extension to the table, USDA, ARS, Ag Research Service located in Manhattan to the table. And we want to start with, I think your local state senator is it Alicia Staub? We'd
Yes.
like to bring her to the table so that we could potentially get letters of support for these philanthropic organizations. Stacy, if you could give me slide 4, please. This file, if there's interest after we present this evening, is available to all of you for further due diligence. But what we're looking to do, the end result of what we're looking for is, you see on the left there examples of DAI products. One of the innovators that's a part of our Green G network is a company called Drought Adaptation and Industries out of the Alamo border, New Mexico area. And they have a Bioenergy Corporation, using patents from Sandia National Laboratory and New Mexico State University. It's a rapid anaerobic digestion system. We would like to see that located here or near Greensburg. We would like to see it locally owned, ag producer owned. And the products that we see coming out of it are biomethane, green hydrogen, carbon dioxide, digestate, and water. This anaerobic digestion system can take a number of feedstocks. One of the assets you have is rail, which I think both UP and BNSF use coming through. So we can use all the way from crop biomass to plastics to other types of products as our feedstock to make these objects. And then those objects can be used as supply for other operations. And you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner where it says a technology from a company in New York called Air Company, that they take the green hydrogen and carbon dioxide and make jet fuel for the military. They already have a $65 million contract from the Air Force. So we would be able to take those offtakes, make that jet fuel, supply the Army, and at Fort Riley, we've got McConnell Air Force Base, we've got folks, we've got the Air Force at Topeka, and we're not that far to Enid, Advanced Air Force Base, all of which could be delivered because of the hydrogen being produced by hydrogen semis that are made by Toyota and a company called Car up in the Seattle area. So all of this fits in with the green direction, the green development that you all have undertaken over the last number of years. Our budget that we will be presenting to these philanthropic organizations for just the Kansas portion is $230 million, which the city would participate in. And we would spread that across Kansas State Extension. We need them involved in helping with documenting the types of crops, documenting the financials, helping us recruit ag producers. They play a critical role, and if we're looking to play a part in what Kansas agriculture is going to look like in 20 to 30 years, they're educating that next ag producer. If you could slide us on down, please, Stacy, to slide 14, please. This is just brief descriptions of the innovators that are involved in our network. Again, Tucumcari Bioenergy. The gentleman behind that used to be a researcher at Los Alamos National Laboratory. He's got roughly 17 patents in the area of fuel cells. The Pyrocene Solutions of the Dr. Charles Curtin out of Mora, New Mexico. His expertise is in forest management and is developing a biochar operation that would provide biochar as a feedstock into the anaerobic digestion and as potential soil amendment for the ag producers. And then Drought Adaptation Industries, which has the all-natural product for soil regeneration and water conservation. So this is in essence what we are trying to accomplish. Again, the entire responsibility for fundraising is on us. We are knocking on those doors. We need communities and regions that are essentially involved in climate change problems. And we have climate change problems because not only are we diminishing our supply of the overall aquifer, but we're also in some moderate and in some cases severe drought areas. And soil regeneration plays a role in greenhouse gas reduction by allowing the soil to absorb more carbon. So there's a lot of benefit to it, but it's just absolutely essential that we have local community involvement in the design of this type of demonstration project. And I am open to questions, and I hope you all will give us a consideration.
Well, thank you, Terry. Very interesting presentation, and as we all know, water usage is a big topic here, not just at Ogallala. Our area is also part of what's called the Rattlesnake Creek Basin. We have some agri-producers that are facing cuts on that as well for different reasons. Yeah, anything that could help reduce water usage for ag production, but yet keep the economy going here, because that's the driver of our economy, is definitely exciting. And if all you're asking for is maybe some introductions, I don't know what it would hurt to introduce it to some of our ag extension people and some of our contacts at the state government.
And we are looking to get to the Director of Extension and to the Director of USDA Ag Research Service. Ag Research Service is important to us because thanks to an investment from your community in 2009 or 2010, it enabled me to make a trip to meet folks within USDA ARS back in Washington, D.C., which allowed me then to become a co-project director of a multi-million-dollar project looking at designing a new canola that could be used with a Hewlett-Packard or a Honeywell system to turn it into commercial jet fuel, involving ag producers and so forth. We feel that is a direction that we could go as well. USDA ARS was the recipient of, I think it was somewhere between $12 and $17 million grant. It came from the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, NIFA, and we'd like to explore not only the philanthropic capital resources, but going back through NIFA, which requires the grant recipient be either someone like K-State University or USDA ARS. So we want them at the table not only for their expertise, but for their ability to receive that kind of money to support this type of demonstration project.
Council, questions, comments? Well, like I said, at this point, just asking for maybe some introductions and such. Again, not personally familiar with the director of K-State Research Extension, but I'm sure we can start somewhere in the chain and maybe help you out there. And also, we know some folks at USDA hopefully could point us in the right direction, and yeah, hopefully get you in touch with who you need to be in touch with.
I'm going to let you, having trouble understanding, but hopefully I've said all I need to say. Hopefully we'll get it to serious consideration and let us know if you're willing to be at the design table.
I think it's,
Stacey, can you hear me?
yes, I think it's hard maybe for you to hear the council from this distance. The mayor was just saying that, yes, that we can help make some contacts for you and be in further conversation about this.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Terry.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right, we'll move on to the next business item. resolution, which will alter our pay scale classification system.
Yes, included in your agenda packet is resolution 2024-05 for your consideration. This would amend our current pay grade classifications to put all department head level positions under the same pay grade at grade 05. Currently, the Convention and Tourism Bigwell Museum Director and the City Clerk Treasurer positions are both in grade 04, while the Police Chief and Public Works Superintendent are in grade 05. This would put all of those department head level in the same, but would not change current wage rates of employees. You'll just see that it amends which grade they're in for those ranges. Open to any questions. The resolution would adopt this change.
Council, any question on the proposed resolution?
I think it makes sense to have all of those administrative positions in the same grade.
Are these positions that you want to move to grade 5, are they kind of at the top of this grade 4 pay scale now?
At this time, one of them is, yes.
Council, any further questions or discussion?
I make a motion to pass resolution 2024-05.
It's been moved and seconded to pass resolution 2024-05, making changes to our pay plan system. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution passed. All right, moving along. Time for another look at our 2025 budget.
That is included in your packet. Excuse me. This time it looks a little different than the spreadsheet document I presented you last time. I worked with Jim Kennedy to get it put onto the state budget document so you can see more of a not finished product, but more what a finished product would look like document. He just took the numbers that I had given you last time and plugged them in. We made a couple of fairly minor changes, but everything else is pretty consistent with what you saw in the last draft. So you'll see, I put in my memo and then also within those documents, you'll see that the current mill levy rate for this budget stands at 66.735. And for 2024, 66.888 was the rate, and the revenue neutral rate is 63.681. So I think since we've implemented since the state implemented the revenue neutral rate, every year we have exceeded, but we've still maintained in the 66 mil range, and this budget is also in that range. It's really just one more hurdle to jump through of passing the resolution, a couple minor hurdles to exceed the revenue neutral rate. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm open it to any questions or discussion. And also considering Jeannie Finch's request from earlier, if you want to discuss that in line with this budget conversation as well.
Council? I'll just, my own 2 cents, always like to try and keep our tax rate as stable as possible for our residents, just not have any big increases or decreases, so I'm happy to see that we're right in that same 66-ish mil rate that we've been for the last several years. And I'll go ahead and, since Jeannie was here earlier today, I know in the past, and just for a few years after the tornado, the city did have a program or funding that was allocated to some local nonprofits. But honestly, I'm not sure how smoothly that program ran, and I don't know that I'm too excited about getting back in that habit of giving money to a local nonprofit because, you know, where do you stop?
Well, I think at that time, Matt, when we was doing that, we were setting that up for the nonprofits to be using it for projects that they had upcoming that they wanted, and we found out that they were using it to pay their bills with.
Well, but that's basically what the museum's asking for right now. is
I
just
understand
general
that.
Operations.
But that's why I asked her if they had contacted Mullenville and Haviland also, and how much the county kicked in. Because I don't think those, at that time, they weren't doing anything like that like we were, but we had ours available to anybody in the county that wanted to apply for it.
Well, and I guess the way I see it, since we have newly just established the Greensburg Future Fund, that might be an avenue to maybe take that place that isn't necessarily us deciding each year who's getting money and who's not.
I don't disagree with that.
I think it would be hard for us to commit a dollar amount every year, especially 5,000. I think it's wonderful, and I know it brings people to town and it's utilized. And, you know, I'm only one person on the tourism board, but I know that there have been other nonprofits that have come with requests for certain things. And that might be an avenue that they could explore to get a little bit of support. But I do recall a number of years ago, I believe Heather was the director at the time at the museum. They were kind of in the same situation, and they came and they asked, and we did do some financial support. And it was literally to help pay bills, make payroll, that sort of thing. And the direction at that time was, this isn't going to be a year after year support. It would be, you know, help now for you to hopefully find a way to make this a sustainable, you know, on your own. I know everybody's struggling, it's not just them. I think it opens a can of worms if we start giving money to the nonprofits. There's a lot of
I don't disagree with that
there's a
either.
lot of people that are struggling right now, so I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
Well, Nathan, Wayne, any thoughts on the museum's request specifically before we look at the overall budget?
I'm sort of in agreement that it's tough to build that into the budget, in my mind, year after year, especially if they have no accountability to us outside of, if they had a specific project or something, I would be much more inclined to entertain that versus just funding their day-to-day operation. Like I said about, I think it's an asset to the community and to the county. But without knowing specifically more where the dollars are going and being able to tell our tax base what's gonna be used for outside of a salary and paying the electric bill. I don't know how to build that in.
I agree.
It seems like there's a consensus maybe that we'll probably decline that request of the Historical Society to build that into this year's budget at least. But just, we've got fairly comprehensive or draft budget before you. I don't know if council's had a chance to kind of look through department by department, line item by line item, any thoughts, any things that jumped out at you? Again, like I said, overall, I'm kind of happy with where we're ending up, just trying to keep that mill levy as steady as we can. We've done that for quite a while, and it's good that we're able to do that, and definitely the valuation increase helps us do that.
I mean, for me, I think the conservative in me says, well, if we can cut taxes, that's great, but the reality is, if we can just keep the tax base stable where the levy's at, and it helps us have some surplus funds or build some funds so that we can invest in infrastructure as a city so that we can continue to grow, I think that's more to the advantage of the city. So I'm in agreement with Matt. I sort of like that it's gonna stay stable and we're gonna see revenue increase, and hopefully as we have new projects and new building come to the city, we can also fund whatever infrastructure needs
one area that I'm glad we were able to allocate more money for next year's budget, at least in this preliminary, is the streets. That's one where it's been a challenge to, we've got the 10-year maintenance plan, but funding it has been kind of a question of how we're gonna do that, and being able to allocate more money to that, I think is gonna help us keep those in as good a shape as possible. So I think that's money well invested in our infrastructure. Council, any other questions, comments on the budget? Just Stacy might remind us again what the timeline is, when we'll look to maybe approve this for publication.
We still have plenty of time. You could do another review of it at the next meeting, and then would set that you want to exceed, if this is what you want to move forward with at that time, that you intend to exceed the revenue neutral rate, because we need to provide notice of that to the county clerk, so that she can begin that notification process. So that would be at the next meeting. And then from there, we would set the public hearing date. Exceeding the revenue neutral rate does give us a little more time into the fall, but typically by August 25th, you have to have it sent to the county clerk if you're not going to exceed. And even exceeding R&R, we've still had it to the county clerk by that end of the third week of August. So typically we hold that public hearing the second meeting of August and approve the budget then.
Well, council, if there's no further discussion on the budget tonight, just encourage you to, again, take a close look at the draft we have before us. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns on this draft budget, please get with Stacy in the next couple weeks, but we'll probably plan on having it on the agenda next time for further discussion and maybe even approving it for moving forward.
One question I guess I have to circle back to the Greensburg Future Fund question and nonprofit support. Excuse me, sorry. Does the council have any appetite to allocate any money to contribute to the Greensburg Future Fund, to grow that, to have more money that can be granted out to local nonprofits through that? Currently, off of the proceeds each year, about $5,000 is all that is available total to be granted out to organizations here in the community. And I think over the last, it's only been 2 years, only 3 or 4 organizations have applied, and so that money was split amongst them. So it's not a huge pot at this time. But if there is any interest of the council, that could be part of the budget process, similar to like the Economic Development Fund, that you either have a planned budget, or maybe it's an item that we look at in December towards the end of the year and see if there is budget authority remaining that you want to make a contribution to the South Central Community Foundation, the Greensburg Future Fund there. So just opening that up for discussion.
Do we know, it sounds like they're giving out about $5,000 per year.
Mm-hmm.
How much money do they have in that fund? I mean, how long is that going to last?
I think it was like in the 90,000s,
So,
90, 98 or something. Typically it's about 5% off of the total amount is what's granted out every year. That money is invested, they have it invested, so it is growing on its own, but at small percentages.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I'd be curious to look back to what we were doing 10 years ago, because it's kind of a similar.
15,000.
Okay.
Basically, it's a similar idea,
Just a smaller amount of money.
smaller amount of money, and we're not administering it. We're not going through, you know, the governing body before was the ones receiving the grant applications and reviewing them and then deciding who gets what. Now, South Central Community Foundation collects those applications. They work with the local committee here to go through them, and then they decide how to divide those up. So it takes the administration off of the city and the council from making those decisions.
Well, yeah, I think then, if the money's there and that's what it's there for, like,
It's just open to nonprofits, churches, any 501c3.
How do they find out about it? How do they know that that is an option for them to
The
ask?
South Central Community Foundation, through their education about their grant programs, they have some other community grant programs, and I think most of the nonprofits here in town are aware of them already. It's on their website and something they promote. And I know Jeannie is aware of the grant opportunities through the South Central Community Foundation that are available, so I did share those with her.
Do you know off the top of your head, if we were to allocate, say, 5,000, what that would do to our overall budget numbers, mill levy next year?
Well, a mill is worth $7,560.
So that would raise it by 2/3 of a mill,
Right.
basically.
But there could be some adjustments in other places, potentially. Or you could allocate it out of the Eco-Devo fund or something like that, you know, that could be a council discretion.
I hate to raise a mill levy to help somebody pay their bills.
Well, and I
mean,
think,
if we can find it within our budget to what we have now, somewhere, if we have to cut something somewhere, a little here, a little there.
I think part of the future fund also is that it's project-based, not just usual operations, kind of like
I
you
understand that.
mentioned.
I understand it,
Mhm.
but that's not always the case. So I would still be interested to see what Avalon Mullen does.
Right.
I mean, it's not a competition amongst them or us, but it is Kiowa County. It's not just Greensburg Historical Society or Southertown.
Well, do we have time to think on this?
Mhm.
We wouldn't have to
Absolutely.
make any kind of decision.
Yeah, I think for now, I'd say review the numbers, and if you have any questions on any item, any comments, get with Stacy in the next couple weeks, or just bring them for discussion at the next meeting. All right, that takes care of that business item, and we'll move on to item of business number 7. Hard to believe that's not our last one. It's a business, just a continuation of our discussion on the potential spec building out of the business park.
Yeah, just to keep this conversation going, I've included the potential funds that could be used for a project that I had last time. And then at the last meeting, I mentioned a USDA program that I was looking into to see if it potentially was a fit for this. And I let you know via email that I did find out it is not, unfortunately. However, I have about 4 tabs open on my computer right now, looking at some other, hopefully, things that might work. But I did get with Kevin Cowan and Gilmore Bell to just refresh my memory from he and I's conversation 3 or 4 years ago when we had this conversation, and we could use municipal bonds towards a project like this to offset the rest of the costs. So there are funding opportunities out there for us. So just at this point, I guess I would like further direction on how you'd like to proceed moving forward, so.
I'd say, from my perspective, our first decision would be from the funding side. Again, we've last meeting kind of identified between the Economic Development Fund and Insurance Fund, maybe $300,000-400,000 in cash on hand that we could probably allocate to this project, but $300,000 or $400,000 is not going to get it done. And if there's, again, that first grant opportunity is not going to pan out, I guess first question, if we wanted to proceed sooner rather than later and not wait for maybe another grant program to maybe help out, would council have any, how serious would council like to pursue maybe, some bond or financing, half the project, $300,000-400,000, whatever we're comfortable spending overall on it, and then kind of maybe get into more serious discussions with Gilmore and Bell on what that would look like, and then from the other side, just where do we want to start on drawing up specs and maybe even looking at, getting a more firm cost estimate of what we're looking for. And that's going to require us to kind of nail down how big a building we want, what features will it need to have, and that type of thing. So what's the first duck in the row we want to tackle here?
kind of a, I don't know what the word I want to use, initiative that this city could put out there to maybe get somebody interested in our thought process on this. They might be interested in utilizing it.
Are you talking
Before we would, you know, if you understand what I'm saying?
looking for maybe a potential tenant, is what you're saying?
Is there any way we can go about doing that with, you know, what would be the steps we would have to start to get?
I think, you know, we're doing a lot of the big things already as far as like advertising with the Department of Commerce on their Location One website. You know, you've got it on our website. I'm not actively cold calling people or anything like that, but I think what could be helpful if we had kind of an idea of roughly what you'd like to build potentially, or to partner with somebody if we had, what kind of incentive package maybe we could offer to nail things down. I know that over the years there's been a lot of different talk about maybe what we could offer someone, but not really nailing down what an incentive package could look like. You know, if we could come up with a one sheet of paper of, this is what we're willing to do, come talk to us. Or
Maybe my idea is getting the cart before the horse too, until we can figure out our funding stream.
Yeah, well,
And if how it's gonna work or where it's gonna work.
I mean, if we, you know, if we had a prospective tenant ready to go from the start, it makes our job a heck of a lot easier because they can kind of tell us what they need.
That's true.
The problem is that's kind of not where we're at. We're
I
trying
know,
to
but that's
build.
what I'm saying. Maybe I'm thinking backwards here. If we knew we had a way we could fund it, we were guaranteed this is what was gonna happen, you know, and then we could put it out there that we're gonna put up a building. If you're interested, let us know, and we could sit down and discuss specs.
I think that's the biggest challenge, is designing and building for somebody and you're not sure what their business is gonna be.
Well, that's why we're talking just a shell of a building.
Right.
Yeah.
But even that, as we've experienced before,
And there's also, to me, there's a limit to
Right.
what we can do, even if they're involved in the discussion. No, we're not gonna landscape for you and all that and everything. We'll put the building up, you know. I guess the funding issue is the first hurdle.
Yeah, I mean, the funding we were able to allocate kind of, you know, defines our scope. How big a building
That's right.
can we build? What features it can have? Like I said, we've got, you know, a few, maybe 400,000 cash on hand, but that's, you know, we're gonna need quite a bit on top of that probably to finish it out.
Oh, yeah.
And just what route we want to go to try to
I
define.
still say we can do it for a lot less than $1 million, like some of them were wanting.
Well, and I think that's part of that funding question is, you know, how much would we want to or be willing to borrow to come up with that total bill? You know, is it 300,000, is it 400,000, or anything like that? And then from that, you know, preliminary conversations of, if we were to borrow 300,000 for 30, 40 years, what's our payment on that look like? And that in turn informs, well, that's what, we're gonna have to lease it for at least that, or probably more than that, to make it work.
Unless after the 5th year, there's the option to buy, and they can buy it out from underneath you, and then they own it.
But that's still an option that they may not exercise, so
I
you've got to
understand.
prepare to keep paying for it.
I understand that.
I don't have any real interest in building a spec building at all. I think from my perspective, we want something out there, we need to come up with a plan of here's how much cash we're willing to throw at this. Here's some incentives that we'll put in place, whether that's free utilities or free for so many years or a certain dollar amount, I don't know. But I think even before we get there, we have to say, okay, well, if we're gonna commit this, what is it gonna do for the community? How many jobs is it gonna create? What revenue incomes is it, you know, revenue flows is it gonna have? Like, how is it gonna stimulate our local economy? And I think before we just throw up a building and hope that, you know, that a gas, a big truck stop like a Love's or a Casey's or something were to come and say, hey, we want to build here, but you built a shed instead of
don't disagree with you, Wayne. I just want to get something out there besides just rental properties. You know what I mean? On a 6-month basis. We need to start putting something out there for the economic development part of it.
Sure.
And I understand exactly what you're saying. I don't disagree with you.
But I think the whole thing is, you know, the whole concept of build it and they'll come. And if we want a baseball park out there, we can build a baseball park there. I don't think we know what we want out there. What kind of tenants do we want? I think that's the wild thing. If we want manufacturing, well, yeah, let's build a huge shed and a huge warehouse out there, and hopefully somebody will come in and put in manufacturing. But if we want a Tesla supercharger station out there to try and pull in more highway traffic, then what infrastructure does that take? I mean, I think that's the direction. We don't even know what industry we're trying to pull in.
Well, I kind of agree with Wayne, there's so much economic development from a government perspective is incentive-based these days. It's, you know, where can you get decent tax breaks, property tax rebates, this, that, and the other. And I
Bring
think
the chiefs to Greensburg.
well, again,
I like
just,
it.
but, yeah, I think if we can come up with a consensus sales pitch, for lack of a better word, of these are the things that we can offer to help grow a business in our community, that may be a better tack than, again, definitely we all want to see something happen out there, but again, we're having such a hard time, we've done this so many times, nailing down exactly what a spec building even looks like out there. Maybe that's a better avenue to try. It'd just be down to council of, okay, you know, we've got $150,000 in that economic development fund. Are we willing, if there's a business who wants to come in and build a facility out there, are we willing to contribute most of that to help offset those costs? Are we willing to go down the road of doing utility discounts or rebates to foster economic development?
I think it's time to start thinking that way, because we've been talking about this for a really long time. I mean, we're 18 years, we'll say 15 years, you know, out, and we're still having the same conversation. So, yeah, I think putting together, I mean,
You know,
150,000,
we've got that can beat up so bad, it won't roll down the road.
you know, maybe 150,000 is that carrot that somebody who's, you know, got an idea and a little bit of money and they can get a loan and.
But you know, I was told previous administration that, oh, we don't want no retail out there. It's an industrial park. We want manufacturing or something like that. I don't care what we put out there. I don't care if it's a knitting needle factory or something, but whatever. And they, you know, anything. Otherwise, we should have left it in airport.
Well, just from the direction this conversation's kind of taken, would council like to maybe, we don't have a lot of figures right in front of us to have an intelligent conversation right now, but, you know, if we were to put together, you know, just kind of a sales pitch or incentive package that we would offer any development out there, again, it would be at council's discretion. If it's gonna bring a dozen jobs in, then yeah, we'd do it. If it's not gonna, you know, if it's just gonna be a warehouse shed, then we wouldn't. But, yeah, we've got some, I guess, tools at our disposal, whether it's cash we've built up over the years in our economic development fund or incentives for utility rebates. I don't know that we give away electricity for a period of time, but, you know, we could sell them at cost, which would still save, if it's a user of a lot of electricity, would save quite a bit of money. So does council maybe want to have that discussion at an upcoming meeting?
You said you had 2 or 3 options on your computer that you was looking at, and you'll have more information possibly, or
Yeah. I know
sink or swim type deal.
a couple of them, one of them's a different USDA program, and I know I talked to somebody at USDA the last time we had this conversation, and it didn't sound like, most of their programs were probably very favorable because they're typically more community facility type as opposed to for business development. I have a couple others pulled up. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head right now, but. And I'll look. I know I have kind of a economic development recruitment profile sheet that I put together. It's actually several pages. Several years ago I put together, and it talks about who we are as Greensburg and as a community, and talks about the hospital, the school, all of those things, but then talks about neighborhood revitalization and the property out at the business park, all of those things. So I'll dust that off too and take a look at it. I know I've sent it out to businesses that have inquired over the last several years, but I think this is a helpful conversation to know how to move forward. So.
Is there any way we can utilize that for locally around here, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
And maybe there is even just locally a lack of awareness, you know, people know that's out there, but maybe don't know that,
it's available for their use if they want to.
and right, what that looks like. You know, we put a sign out there a few years ago, land
Yeah, I
available,
mean-
tax incentives, but it doesn't,
It's just like what we've talked about here, put together a package and make local people aware of it. It might surprise you what would come out of the woodwork.
Is there limitations on what we can do out there? I mean, obviously, we probably can't put a housing complex out there, but is there limitations as far as industry versus retail versus?
it is zoned industrial, and that was the intent initially, but a zoning request could go through the planning commission and up the chain to you. If there was a development, I'm looking at you, Christy, that should come about, you know, so if a housing developer did want to come in and build 40 houses out there, you know, that would definitely we would want to rezone that to a residential zoning as opposed to industrial for sure. Because then what could locate right next, you don't want a big heavy manufacturing right next to a housing development.
It's true.
But whoever the first mover is, I say, my opinion, you
Right.
give them the green light. If it,
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have any idea, and I think to Mark's point, I don't care at all what's out there.
It is-
We
it's
just
a blank
want
slate.
something out there, and, you know, that's my only hesitation on building something pre-built, because then it is sort of limiting to whatever you put in a shed or whatever the spec building we put is. Now we have handcuffs on as far as a constraint,
Mhm.
and.
And that's
if there was
really-
somebody here today, I'd say, yeah, let's get it done, let's figure out how to work with them so that they can make this happen, but.
How I've marketed is as a blank slate, that it's shovel ready, we have the utilities there, it could be anything. We have parcels, you know, up to almost 60 acres, parcels that could be divided however you need, but just haven't found that right fit yet, so.
I think it's, providing here from the council, I think it's worth pursuing, maybe to have a discussion at a future meeting. Maybe, again, if we do want to look into incentives for locating out there, what we're willing to do. That sound okay to council? All right. We will move on to our last item of business tonight, and that is to authorize the sale of some unused equipment.
Not completely unused, but aged and some unused. The public works staff, Danny has gone through and looked at some of our equipment, some that's been sitting for some time. You'll look at the dates on a lot of this. We've had, some of it we still are using on a mostly daily or weekly basis, but we could definitely use some upgrades for things that will run more reliably, but also serve our purposes better with processes and equipment that we now have. So you'll see that list there that we're proposing be auctioned off through Big Iron Auction. Nick has talked with Greg McMurray. There's an auction at the end of August that if council approves, we could have this put in. And then the proceeds from the sale of this equipment, we would put in the equipment reserve fund. And we're having some conversations internally about a couple different things that we would like to bring to you for purchase to replace some of these things that we have. For instance, a dump truck and a larger pickup that can haul the sewer machine and the vac trailer. Right now, a lot of times they're hooking up the vac trailer to the mini bucket truck because the other pickups we have aren't heavy enough to tow it. So that's just a for instance. So putting this to you to see if you're interested in approving to sell these pieces of equipment.
Council?
Just look at the money we could save buying antique tags for some of that stuff. I'm serious.
Yeah, yep. And some of it, like
My favorite was the loader.
yeah, the loader.
That was my favorite.
Of course, we have
It's a
to
classic.
go with government tags anyway, we can't
Yeah.
utilize antique tags.
Yeah,
They've gone through their stuff and they know what they need and what they're not using. It's better off
yeah.
Getting what we
selling
can
it
for
and
it.
get what we can so we can put it towards what we need.
I agree. The only thing I was gonna ask is, what about the Tahoe? Does it ever get used?
It does, not a whole lot. That is a conversation we had a couple years ago
I
about.
remember that we had some concerns with it being the hybrid and
Yeah,
expensive when it does.
you know, it was
have
donated
issues.
right after the tornado. It has 150-ish miles, I think. I'm trying to remember from the last time I drove it. It still runs okay, but who knows one of these days what might happen. But at the time, you know, it's paid for, it doesn't get a ton of use. We have had some internal discussions about, is it time to transition it off as well?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're ready to get rid of it, we can add it to the list.
And how often is it truly getting used?
At this point, honestly, not a lot, because some of us are a little concerned about taking it very far.
So,
It's
The last 3 times I have driven it, I've called Danny and said, this gauge is going off, should I be concerned?
the linemen have taken it some when they've gone to apprentice training. I've taken it, here and there. But it does not get weekly use. I would not say it even sometimes gets monthly use. And so maybe that's a conversation also to have either now or in the future about whether we want to have an admin type vehicle or just pay mileage to staff, because we're doing both. It's kind of the employee's preference, whether they just prefer to drive their own and be paid mileage or to take a city vehicle, because not everybody's comfortable driving that. I mean, it is a large vehicle.
If you're parking in a parking garage or in a downtown area for a conference or something, it's not the handiest vehicle.
No.
If you needed to pull something, that's another story.
Yeah,
Or haul something, it was great when we needed it for that, but we haven't needed it for that as much.
when we used to do the state fair booth and we had our own freestanding booth to haul everything up there, and we were doing some other marketing type stuff, I know that I used it for that purpose. And then even before that, when the administrator was using it on a daily basis to drive, that's just not something I personally have felt like I needed or wanted to do, especially having kids. It's not appropriate for me to, if I need to shuttle my kids around, I don't wanna just have the city vehicle here and my personal one at home. So, it has not been a daily driver for me, as it has been in the past.
Car market is these days, maybe if we're looking for what, a 3/4 ton or a 1
Yeah.
ton or something?
Yeah.
We have money and use that as a trade-in or
And that's kind of been the thought of,
use
we were
that?
looking at a trade-in, looking at a pickup from a dealership or something that we could maybe use that as towards a trade-in as well, so.
I was just thinking, if we're not using it, it kind of
Right.
falls in the same category to me as some of this
Mhm.
other equipment.
Mhm.
And if it's operational now, it's better than
Right.
sitting 6 months and maybe
It
not
is.
be, you know.
Yeah, and I'd say, it's got a lot of cosmetic because it's sat in the sun.
Mhm.
Does it need to be on this list?
I don't know that I'd put it on this list. I think we can definitely have an eye on, do we use it towards a trade-in on something else, getting a pickup? Because a pickup will be something coming before you, a larger pickup. So maybe when we get some options of what that pickup purchase might be, maybe we look at the Tahoe's potentially a trade.
Might get more bang for our buck doing it like that than
Yeah.
trying to sell it just.
Yeah, I'm afraid, I don't know if, it probably has more value. I don't know.
Hard to say.
It's hard to
And
say,
going at
especially right
auction,
now.
it's hard to know what you would get for something, so.
And just throw it in on the business park incentive deal. First payment, you get the Tahoe as well.
I mean,
That'll work, but it's yours.
it's also been used as the airport shuttle bus as well. I've picked people up a couple times at the airport in it, so. It is nice to have a vehicle for that purpose.
Limo service.
Yes, because we do get calls from pilots, do you have a courtesy car? Nope, but I'll come get you.
Well, do we need a motion to approve the sale of the items presented?
Please.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the sale of the presented equipment. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sale is authorized. All right, that is the end of our items of business tonight. We'll move on to citizen reports.
Last week, the water treatment plant media was delivered to do that project that was approved several months ago. And it's scheduled to happen next week, but you know how things go. So in the near future, that project will take place. The pump track mulch, the rubber mulch, will be starting soon over there as soon as it dries out. They intended to get a start on that today, but went over in their standing water. So once that dries out, they'll get started on that. We've been doing a lot of mowing and trimming this week around town. I had previously told you we've been sending out weed notices, and some of those properties have gotten mowed that went through that notification process. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. And they did make the street repairs on East Grant and South Maple from the water leaks a couple weeks ago. So you'll see the fresh asphalt there. National Night Out, the community night out we've done the last several years, the police department has sponsored and put on, will be on Tuesday, August 6th. And our police department, as well as other law enforcement and other emergency services in the county, and also Kansas Highway Patrol, are all participating to help put that on. And then I've reached out to Charles Wise, who's donated to us for many years since the tornado, and the council has indicated previously you would like to name the park after him. I thought that would be a good evening to do a sort of a dedication and unveiling of a sign there at the park. And I reached out to him, and he is planning to come that night, and hopefully some other family he's talking to. So we'll do a little unveiling ceremony there. I'm working on a sign order and reviewing that with Mr. Weiss to make sure he's okay with the wording and everything before that order is finally placed. I do have a mock-up of it on my desk I meant to bring in here and I forgot. So if you'd like to stop in and see it, I'll show it to you. And then just a reminder of fireworks, since the 4th of July is this week. Fireworks can be sold the last couple days, several days, and through Friday the 5th, and can be discharged and sold 10 a.m. to midnight each day through Friday. It looks like Thursday night now, there's not a chance of storm, so hopefully
Much less.
will still be.
Contingency for.
The mayor and I discussed that a little bit last week, that maybe the contingency would be Friday, the next day. That would probably be the easiest solution. After that, stay tuned.
Last day.
That's right, that's the last day without coming to you for approval.
Special meeting.
That's right, we'll have a
that
special
evening.
meeting, the 4th of July, to schedule
Can we
it.
stretch it till 1 a.m. on Saturday?
Right. I think that's all I've got.
At least we're not in a burn ban.
Yeah.
Right. Good timing for rain.
Yeah.
Questions for Stacy? You did mention that the rain we got this past weekend held up a couple projects. That is the largest rain we've had in quite a while. Did that cause us any problems for streets, for sewer, anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
It came so slow and easy, it didn't
Yeah.
have a chance to flood streets and.
I think when we have an inch in 45 minutes, that's where we see water, but I know I was out of town yesterday, and when I got back, there wasn't any standing in Sunset Park, and none in the area around there. And so I think our system did its job, and I didn't really notice anywhere else that there seemed to be issues, and none of the guys mentioned any today, so,
We weren't as fortunate as Dodge City, so.
yeah.
Well, I know county roads got washed out horribly.
Sure.
Yeah, because, just several inches of rain, and those crews were going to be working for a month, I think, or probably.
Yeah.
Other questions for Stacy?
Have we been in contact with our person that we signed the contract with out to hay the airport?
No, but I'll reach out to him.
Okay. Who's going to take care of around them electrical boxes and the culverts and things such as that? We should have sprayed around them, shouldn't we? Because, I mean, if they hay that, they're not gonna get up close to nothing.
Yeah, I don't wanna hit that with an implement.
Hmm.
You don't wanna hit that with an implement.
Well, they're probably going 50 mile an hour anyway, so they're going to
Mhm.
stay plenty far away. But it's starting to look pretty rugged.
And especially with this rain, that will make it all grow.
Yeah.
Other questions for Stacy? Any governing body comments tonight? All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda tonight, so we will adjourn the meeting. Thanks for your time, everybody.